Hey guys, back for a new video segment or series, whatever you want to call it. Today I'm just looking at the top key card in each element. Now, what do I mean by key card? Well, it's in most, if not all, the decks of that element. It makes a tangible contribution to the element's power level, so like it makes it good. It affects the way you play the element, so you kind of play towards it, and it affects the way your opponent plays against it, so they have to kind of play around it. Now, all the cards in this list kind of fulfill this criteria in some capacity. They may not strictly be the best card of that element, but a case can probably be made for some of them to be the best card, but that's not the focus here. I'm going to go in order of easiest to hardest decision, rather than the actual element order. I'll try and list some of the other contenders or candidates when applicable. Some of them are really easy. The first one that I'll actually look at is Earth, and this was no doubt in my mind, is definitely Shantoto. So many games involving Earth are decided by this card. You have to play around it until it's played, and you can win the game on the spot if someone doesn't play around it. It's essentially one of the big things about this card is it's essentially unstoppable. There is only one way in the game currently to prevent it, which is 7, and that's not that common. And because it removes the forwards from the game, there's no forwards you can play that just don't care. There's no board you can kind of build that removing with Shantoto doesn't swing the game. So honestly, I believe that every Earth deck should play 3 of this, no questions asked. I know some people don't believe that and they'll play less because, it's semi-situational, but it's the kind of card that if you want it, if you're in a situation where Shantoto is good, you absolutely want to have that card right there because you'll win the game. It's that insane. Like I said, I've played a lot of Earth, and so many of games have just been decided by this card alone, and especially playing against it, I notice a lot of what I have to do is generally lower power just because of the potential of Shantoto until my opponent plays 5 backups. If they do that, then I can be more aggressive, especially with the Emperor where you can stop with breaking him. But yeah, in general, you have to play around this card. I don't know why it gives Rainbow Mana, that's just icing on the cake, which is whatever, awesome. But yeah, this card is nuts. The next obvious element for me, this is, again, no doubt in my mind, this is probably the only card on the list which is strictly a combo card. You have to have something else in your hand to make it good, but it's obviously Alcid. It just shows you how strong he is that, again, this is a combo card, but it's that good that I'm making it the key card of this element. It's generally a 3 forward swing just for 4 mana, so you gain 2 forwards, they lose a forward, which is nuts. Most games you lose against Lightning you probably started losing when Alcid hit the field. If you look back at them, you'll probably realize that. It's such a swing in the game that you have to try so hard to kind of get back in, and then especially if they do it again, which is not unlikely, because Lightning, have a lot of recursion, mainly Sage. You got Fusoya as well with Lulu, things like that. It makes it so much easier to match this card with its combo cards, multiple times. It's searchable with Gramus as well. Even Ice Lightning can search Rig Tier with Mog, which is the lesser half, but still can be really good. So yeah, this card really has changed the game and made Mono Lightning in Opus 2 was so good, purely because of this card. The next one's Water, and this, at first with Water, there was a bunch of cards that came to my mind. Leviathan and Fanfrit were 2 of them, immediate picks in my head, but then I realized that alone, those cards are not, overpowered, that's, generally fair. It's Yuna that makes them insane. This card is just absurd value. It's the best 2-cost backup in the game by far, and that is not an exaggeration. Most decks require 2-cost backups, or sorry, all decks require 2-cost backups even. It's just so their turn 1 is good. And most playable 2-cost backups fall into one of 2 categories. They either do one thing on either activation or break, so you get Artemission, Archer, Monk, things like that. The other ones are reusable, but they have some kind of CP investment, which is generally overcosted for the effect. So you've got Red Mage, Astrologian, those kind of Selfie, those kind of effects. Yuna requires no investment, and it's a constant relevant benefit. There are a few other backups kind of like it, but they're really niche, things like Arc and Penelo, but Yuna is just relevant all the time, because the water summons are already good, like I said. This card base essentially gives you mana instead of taking it away like those other kind of reusable backups. And the cards that, it just makes these summons so much better. Fairy goes from decent to excellent. It's basically you spend 1 mana to have all your forwards brave for a turn, essentially, which is nuts. Especially a surprise brave as well. It's they don't even know whether you have it for sure. It makes Leviathan and Fanfrit efficient when you're tapped out, so that you don't have to leave a mana open and essentially waste that mana if it doesn't come up, just to have the threat of that removal. And Kucha Lane would probably be unplayable if it wasn't for Yuna. Yuna is probably the reason Cuchulainn is playable. There's just so much impact this has on the element. Obviously, the only drawback is that it's called Una and there are other good Unas, but any deck that can play this card, you play for sure. It's so good. I wish every 2-cost backup did this. I don't though, because that would be nuts. Now Ice. This is probably the card on the list that you probably wouldn't ever call the best card in the element. And I had to decide between this card and Vayne. I think Vayne's nuts as well, but in the end it went. I gave it to this card, Zalira. It's probably not the best card in the element, but it does completely change the way you play against Ice, the way you play Ice. Especially it gives Ice removal for starters, which is something they don't normally have, like hard removal. They just dull and freeze, that kind of thing. This actually kills things. And it's kind of like, it's similar to Shantoto. It's like different, obviously, because it's more situational and it's one-sided. So it has advantages, disadvantages. But the fact that there are so many forwards that you can't flood the field with because of the threat of this card, like especially decks like Wind Water have a lot of 3s and 5 costs, and so you can't just play a bunch of those because then you get Zalira'd. Just like Shantoto, you can't just play a bunch of forwards because you get Shantoto, and it's just so much of a swing. So many games you can just win on the spot with this card if it's not played around. The other interesting thing to note is generally people believe the counter to Ice is reactivation, which is mostly true. Like most of the time that is fair. And people apply that to Zalira as well. But actually, Zalira, if you play it correctly in the reactivation matchups, it's actually the opposite. Zalira actually counters their reactivation because it's instant speed. Instead of using it aggressively to try and clear their board, you wait for them to try and reactivate their stuff because that's what they're going to do because they're playing as Ice. Then you respond with Zalira to something like Aerith or Oracle or Astrologian, something like that. That actually counters their reactivation instead of the other way around, and you get the swing, the board, the forwards break, and they lose that effect on whatever mana they spent for it, which is such a huge swing. So yeah, this card actually, it changes matchups a lot, and it gives Ice something like a power play and a way to break things that they really didn't have otherwise. And I think it's funny actually, Minerva would be a really good card against Ice if it was 8 cost. Like, it would actually be better if it costed more, just so it doesn't die to Zalira. Because that's one of the few 5 cost or higher forwards that gets turned off by Vayne, but its effect is still active, whereas most of them just don't do anything when they're dull. But yeah, this card really has changed Ice for the better. Like, it's really helped him out a lot, but yeah, it's something you have to play around. For Fire, originally, I actually couldn't think of a Fire card off the top of my head. I don't know, because the element's just like generally underwhelming. As much as I love it, it's kind of underwhelming compared to the other elements at the moment. But then I realized this card exists. I didn't even think of it because it wasn't even a card in my head. It was just a thing. Like, it's just a thing that happens when you're playing against Fire. Every now and then, their guy gets bigger and like wins a battle, right? So yeah, it's such a constant thing that you essentially can't safely battle forwards that are either equal or 1k less than you because of this card when you're playing against Fire. You just can't do that safely in general. This card is so efficient. Like, you get the card back for playing it. It's EX for some reason, which is sick. There's no drawback whatsoever to this card. It gives haste as well, which doesn't come up that often, but it can just open up potential game shots out of nowhere. Again, that threat, you have to kind of be wary of that. Yeah, there's not much else to say about this card really. It's universal. It's efficient. It's solid. There's not many situations that's not good. Yeah. Now, Wind. This was the hardest element for me to think of, like, a key card. It's kind of a weird element. It's usually the support element, so to speak. There are heaps of cards that are used in, like, a lot of decks, but they're not really, like, high impact. Like, you got Maria, which is, like, quite good. You got Archer, Zidane, even Dorgan, who I think is, like, really good, but they're not really the kind of impact, the kind of key cards that I was looking at. But then I strongly considered Aerith. That's, like, a nuts card. It's probably one of the best cards in Opus. Well, it is one of the best cards in Opus 1. It's really good. But then I realized an entire archetype exists and is the most popular archetype because of this card. It's the Starter Pain. Like, Wind Water has been basically universal since Opus 1 as, like, a good deck, and even, like, Opus 3 now, it's probably the most played deck, the most meta deck, so to speak, and it's all because of this card. This card is obscene. Like, the value on this card is ridiculous. It doesn't look quite like it when you first read it, but the backups that make it good, like, so you got Yuna and Riku, you need to have him play to make it good. They're 2-cost backups, and they're both really good. Like, Yuna's on this list, and Riku is actually quite good as well. So activating it is not a problem. Like, making it consistently active. Those cards are searchable as well by the other Pain. And then this card is essentially a negative 2-cost. And it sounds so weird, but you actually gain cards from playing this. You know, it doesn't even cost 0. It gives you a card and costs 0. So it's like think of any other situation, you basically suddenly a 7k spawns on your board for nothing. Like, it just comes out of nowhere. And that's basically what pain is. Which is ridiculous. Like, that's so much value, and it's not... Unlike, I mean, I'm not saying anything against our Sid, obviously. Like, our Sid's crazy. But the value from pain, it's not reliant on them having an active forward, like anything. Like, you just get the value no matter what, as long as you have Yuna and Riku up. Which is so strong. And yeah, like I said, it's probably the reason, it is the reason that Wind Water has been so universal for so long. Yeah, those are my picks, though. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there are cards that you think should have been in the spot instead. If you've chosen something different, or if there's anything I forgot to mention about these cards. But yeah, thanks for watching, though. Cheers.